The war between China and Taiwan has not started, but the entire world knows it could begin at almost any moment. That is what makes Taiwan one of the most dangerous places on Earth today, because this is not just a dispute over a small island. It is a conflict that could pull in China, the United States, and much of the world into a crisis far bigger than most people realize. One wrong military move, one failed political decision, one miscalculation in the sea or sky, and the balance of power in Asia could change overnight. And if that happens, the consequences would not stay in Asia. They would be global. That is why military planners, world leaders, intelligence agencies, and governments watch Taiwan so closely. Because many experts believe that if a major war breaks out in the modern era, Taiwan could be where it begins. And to understand why this small island has become so important, you have to understand something deeper. For China, Taiwan is not seen as just another country nearby. It is seen as unfinished history, an unresolved wound, a piece of land that Beijing believes should already belong to them. But Taiwan does not see itself that way. And that is where the danger begins. Because when two sides believe completely different things about the same place, conflict becomes much more likely. To much of the outside world, Taiwan looks like a modern, self-governing democratic island with its own government, military, economy, elections, and international importance. And in reality, that is exactly what it is. But to the Chinese government, Taiwan is not truly separate. It is considered part of China. And that single disagreement has created one of the most dangerous geopolitical tensions in the world. This is not a new issue. It is the result of history, civil war, national identity, military power, and global rivalry all colliding in one place. And that place now sits at the center of one of the most serious questions in international politics. Will China try to take Taiwan by force? If that ever happens, the world would not just be watching. The world could be dragged in. Because Taiwan is not isolated. Its location matters, its economy matters, its technology matters, and its political future matters to some of the most powerful countries on Earth. That means Taiwan is no longer just a regional issue. It has become a global one, and one of the biggest reasons for that is geography. Taiwan sits off the coast of mainland China, surrounded by strategically critical waters and trade routes. At first glance, it may look like just an island near a larger country. But in military and geopolitical terms, it is far more than that. Control over Taiwan would reshape power in the Western Pacific. It would affect naval access, military positioning, air defense, regional alliances, and the broader balance between China and the United States. That is why Taiwan is not simply symbolic, it is strategic. And whenever something is both symbolic and strategic, it becomes dangerous. But this story is not only about ships, missiles, or military maps. It is also about identity, because over time, Taiwan developed differently from mainland China. Its political system evolved in a different direction. Its society changed. Its people built a different future. And that means the issue is no longer just about territory. It is also about who gets to decide what Taiwan is, and who it belongs to. For Beijing, the answer is already decided. For many in Taiwan, it is not. And that creates a tension that no military exercise or diplomatic statement has ever fully resolved, which is why every year the pressure keeps growing. Chinese military aircraft enter Taiwan's air defense zone more often. Naval activity in the region increases. Military drills become larger and more intense, political language becomes sharper, and each time that happens, the world asks the same question again. Is this just pressure or preparation? Because modern war does not always begin with a formal declaration. Sometimes it begins with intimidation, sometimes with blockades, sometimes with military exercises that suddenly stop looking like practice. And if a crisis ever erupts over Taiwan, it would move incredibly fast. Faster than many people imagine. Missiles, aircraft, cyber attacks, naval forces, satellite intelligence, economic disruption, all of it could happen in a matter of hours. And if the United States becomes involved, which many believe is possible, the situation could become even more dangerous. Because then this would no longer be a local conflict. It would become a confrontation between two of the most powerful countries on Earth. That is why Taiwan matters so much. Not because it is large, not because it is loud, but because it sits at the exact point where history, power, pride, and global strategy collide. And history has shown many times before When pride and power collide in the wrong place, war can follow. But how did this small is? To understand the dangerous standoff between China and Taiwan, you need to know its key turning points. The island's identity has changed dramatically. First, after being part of China's Qing dynasty, a major shift happened in 1895 when Taiwan was lost to Japan. For 50 years, it developed under Japanese rule, separating its path from the mainland. After Japan's defeat in World War II, Taiwan was returned to Chinese control, under the government called the Republic of China. But the biggest turning point came in 1949. After a brutal civil war on the mainland, the communists won, and the defeated nationalist government fled to Taiwan. This created the standoff we see today. A government that functions independently in Taiwan, and a government in Beijing that claims it as its own, based on a long and complicated history. By the time the Chinese Civil War ended in 1940, China, and inside one of the most strategically sensitive regions in the world. That means and Taiwan sits directly in the middle of them. Then there is the issue of national pride, and this matters more than many outsiders realize. For Chinese leadership, especially under strong nationalist messaging, Taiwan is often framed as a matter of national dignity and sovereignty. So after all of this history, tension, military buildup, and global attention, the biggest question still remains. Could a real war over Taiwan actually happen? The honest answer is this. Yes, it could. And that is exactly why the world is so worried. Because this is not some distant, impossible scenario. It is one of the most serious geopolitical risks of the modern age. That does not mean war is guaranteed, far from it. In fact, all sides understand how dangerous such a conflict would be. And that is one of the main reasons war has not happened so far. The cost would be enormous. The destruction would be massive, and the consequences would reach far beyond the Taiwan Strait. But history has shown something important many times before. Even when leaders know war would be disastrous, crises can still spiral out of control. And Taiwan has many of the ingredients that make dangerous miscalculation possible. Military pressure, national pride, unclear red lines, powerful alliances, and very little room for error. That is what makes this issue so unstable. Because a war over Taiwan might not begin with a dramatic formal declaration. It could begin with something much smaller. A naval confrontation, an air incident, a blockade, a cyber attack, a missile test that goes too far, a political crisis that triggers military escalation. In the modern world, major conflict does not always start with a speech. Sometimes it starts with movement, with pressure, with actions that are meant to intimidate, but end up triggering something much larger. And if that ever happens around Taiwan, events could move extremely fast. Because the region is already under constant military attention. Aircraft fly, ships patrol. Surveillance systems track movement. Command centers remain alert. That means there would be very little time for calm political decision-making once a crisis truly begins. And that is dangerous. Because in moments of fear and confusion, governments can make choices based not only on strategy, but on pressure. And pressure is where Taiwan becomes especially risky. For China, Taiwan is tied to history, sovereignty, national pride, and long-term political goals. For Taiwan, the issue is survival, freedom, and self-determination. For the United States, it is about deterrence, credibility, regional power, and global stability. That means if a crisis begins, none of the main players can easily back away without feeling that they are losing something major. And when powerful countries feel trapped between backing down and escalating, that is when wars can begin. Then there is the military reality itself. A conflict over Taiwan would not look like an old 20th century war. It would be modern, fast, and technologically intense. It could involve missiles, warships, fighter aircraft, cyber attacks, satellite disruption, naval blockades, economic warfare, and possibly attacks on critical infrastructure. This would not just be a battle for territory. It could become a test of military endurance, political will, and global economic stability all at once. And that last part is especially important because Taiwan matters to the modern world far beyond politics and geography. It plays a major role in global technology supply chains. That means even a short conflict could disrupt industries across the world. Electronics, vehicles, communications, manufacturing, global markets. Everything could feel the shock. So if war happened over Taiwan, the consequences would not stay in one region. They would spread quickly economically, militarily, politically, and psychologically. But here is the most important truth of all. The future of Taiwan is not yet written. While the risks are real, they are not inevitable. The danger exists not because war is certain, but because peace requires constant effort. This is where the real story lies. Not in the inevitability of conflict, but in the power of diplomacy, communication, and shared interests. Every nation involved understands the catastrophic cost of war. And that shared understanding is a powerful force for peace. The path forward is built on de-escalation, dialogue, and finding common ground, no matter how difficult. It requires wisdom from leaders and a global commitment to stability. Because in the end, the story of Taiwan is not just about power and fear. It is also a story of resilience, interconnectedness, and the profound hope that even in the most tense situations, humanity can choose a better path. A path not of conflict, but of peace. And that choice is still in our hands.